So there's a video that's been going viral by this gamer who just quit his job, and I'm curious, we're all curious in fact, to see what's going on. So
Bro, all right, guys. So I just quit my corporate job. I've been there for 3 years, and I have zero backup plan.
zero.
For some background, worked for a tech company in New York City, and I honestly never liked what I did. Basically, staring at data and optimizing it all day, right? So staring at a spreadsheet until it was literally burned into my retinas at night. And yesterday, I left the office to never come back. So you might be asking, why would you quit your job, especially with no backup plan, right? Because everyone always says, don't quit your job if you don't have another one lined up. And I know the economy, the job market right now is definitely not great, but let's talk about it. So long story short, a couple months ago, a big mistake was made on one of my accounts, and they tried to pin it on me. I'm a lower on the totem pole. They tried to put the whole thing on me, and that didn't sit right with me because I had nothing to do with the mistake. It wasn't my mistake. So I stood up for myself. I decided I wasn't going to let these fake corporate people step on me for their mistake. So I defended myself, fired shots back, basically said it's your fault, not mine, right? And then after nearly 3 years of nothing but positive feedback, my new manager, who's the one that pinned this entire thing on me, all of a sudden had tons of negative feedback for me in the 2-week period following this mistake that she made, right? And she said I needed to turn things around. I'm not fulfilling the requirements of my role, and if I didn't, they would put me on a PIP, which is Performance Improvement Plan. It's basically corporate nonsense that is saying you're going to get fired, but we're going to do this before we fire you so we can protect ourselves. So one thing about me is, I'm by no means the smartest, but I am a hard worker, and I always have been. And here I'm being told I'm not working hard enough. So,
That's when it hurts the most, when you've been working hard. They don't acknowledge it, and now they want to tell you the opposite. You haven't been working hard. They won't acknowledge that.
For the last month or so at my job, I reached new levels of try hard, right? I'm working 12-hour days every single day, just being super extra with everything that I do. Like going the extra mile, really just basically making it so she can't say I'm not doing my job. So then, a couple weeks ago, I got a call from my manager, and she puts me on the performance improvement plan anyway, despite the hard work, despite everything, right? So this is typical corporate nonsense. And what I learned about this corporate world, at my time in it so far, is it doesn't actually matter how hard you work in the corporate hellscape, right? Your input is genuinely irrelevant at most of these tech jobs, especially. Like, there's people that work their ass off and they'll put everything into their work, and they'll end up getting the same treatment as the people that are literally doing nothing, just coasting, maybe doing the bare minimum. And if your manager doesn't like you at these jobs, you're really cooked, by the way.
You're cooked. You're honestly cooked. You are finished. Compared to someone who just gets by and they're just barely doing anything, but they're good with the whole politics, with the whole work environment. They know how to play the game. They lick the managers behind, per se. Yeah, you're done.
I've had managers who love me, and it makes such a difference. Like, there's times where I was like, wow, this job's so easy, and I'm still getting great feedback, and then you get a new manager, and boom, you're cooked. So, and before anyone asks, a lot of people are like, why didn't you go to HR? Like, this sounds like an HR situation, sounds not fair. Here's another thing that I learned, right? HR is a total joke. They're solely there to protect the company. They have zero interest in protecting you. So, I went to them. They did not help at all. The HR lady was, a remote worker who, I'm not going to say anything, but she had cats running all over in the background, and that should kind of tell you the vibes. I have nothing against cats, but you know what I mean, right? And, she's just telling me how they want me to succeed, and, they wouldn't have fired me if they didn't want, or they would have fired me if they wanted me fired. They want to see me succeed, which is total, bullshit. So, I have my PIP meeting, my PIP meeting, and I'm just hearing all this legit nonsense. And all these things that I need to do to keep my job and how much they care about me, and it might not feel like it, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the meeting, I was just like, yeah, I quit. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, all I can do is, you know, show up and work hard. That's all I've been doing my whole time at this company. So I quit. You know, I wasn't going to let them juice every last ounce of work out of me before firing me anyway. I ended it on my own terms. And every boomer that I know, including my own parents, you know, mind you, told me that this was the wrong decision.
Bad decision.
Right? Quitting with no backup plan is irresponsible. You know, sometimes you got to just, you know, stick through it. But I feel like if there's anything I've learned, it's you got to do what feels right sometimes. Sometimes you feel it in your gut, and you got to follow your gut, right? So, yeah, I just quit, guys. You know, I'm going to, you know, go travel for a little bit. Going to Italy, you know, Europe, things like that. I figured I'm only getting older, right? So luckily I've been able to save a ton of money up. You know, I took the sacrifice of living at home for a couple of years, so it's not like I had bills to pay. Was saving a lot of money this entire time that I've been working here. And, you know, also not gonna lie, a big part of this was like crypto, right? And I can make a separate video, but I basically made my salary in crypto in the past couple months alone. So, you know, I'm sitting here getting shit on by these people that think that, you know, because they have a little bit of power, they can just treat me like shit. And I'm like refreshing my crypto wallet, seeing like this crazy number, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm not gonna do this. You know, I don't care if it might be irresponsible. Like, for now, I'm out of here, and I'll figure it out. I know I will, but this is not for me, clearly, right? So
he sounds like he's young.
I feel like with my channel, I don't want to make it seem like I have it all figured out, because I don't, right? I'm still relatively young. You know, I've definitely learned a ton of shit, but if this is any indicator, you know, I'm still learning every single day, right? So I definitely don't want to come off as someone speaking from a higher ground, right? I'm right here in the trenches right now, but I'm enjoying every moment of it, right? And before you make a decision like this, if you're miserable at your job, I would say, like, you don't want to completely burn any bridges. Like, I really wanted to just say, fuck you guys, and just, you know, move on. But, you know, I went to people that I had positive experience with. I got reference letters and things like that. So, you know, hopefully that will carry on if I need in the future. But the moral of the story here is there's no loyalty in corporate America, right? There's no human emotion. It's all fake. And to be honest, with AI, I'm not sure half of these jobs will be around much longer. Like, so many of these people are genuinely getting paid for nothing. Like, they're doing nothing all day and pretending to work. Like, that's a huge chunk of corporate America, right? And I could have stayed, collected a few more paychecks while they shit on me some more. But, I stood up for myself. I quit. I ended it on my own terms. And when I did it, I wasn't sure it was the right move. It was just what my gut told me. But now, you know, this huge weight is off my shoulder, right? You know, I'm still young. I have money saved up, and I hated what I was doing, right? We spend so much time at work that if you really dread your job, you're going to end up dreading your life, right? So I just said, you know, enough is enough. And I quit. So, yeah, I will, you know, say, like, I do live in New York City, so there are a ton of jobs available as opposed to other places. It's still a rough job economy. Like, I'm not going to lie. It's definitely a bad time to not have a job. But I do have, you know, friends and connections where I can switch to another industry. I really don't think I'll go back into tech, but I just, you know, I'm grateful that I have the chance to stop doing something that I dread, and I have a little bit of time, and luckily I made some sacrifices and some smart investments where I can actually focus on myself for a little bit.
So he does have like a backup plan.
So, you know, even these YouTube videos, it's like therapy for me, just talking to, like, you guys. I don't know, it's weird, but like, this is something I enjoy doing. After years of doing something you hate, you start to realize, you know, especially early on in your career, what you hate and what you enjoy. And, you know, that's why I'm still grateful for this shitty job that I had for all these years. You know, even though I hated it, I now know what I'm not going to do with the rest of my life. And I now know how to navigate this corporate world that we're subject to. So yeah, guys, I don't want to encourage anyone to quit their job. Even, I will say, like, there was times I wanted to quit emotionally. Things were not going well, but I didn't quit. I stuck with it. This wasn't really as much as an emotional decision. It was more of I got to get out of here before they can my ass anyway. But I want to end this by saying, if you're in a similar situation where you may have a manager treating you terribly and it's just not fair, don't let it get to you, right? Because past couple months, like, I would work my ass off every day, and when you're doing that and no one's giving you even a thank you or good job on working so hard on this, it really gets to you, and you start to question the value of your work. And
I completely agree. Look, I just wanted to give the video time so I don't interrupt and, let it play out and then give my take. But look, if you feel like you're being unappreciated, it's never the best place to stay. It makes sense. You only have one life and you need to be happy, essentially. If you're a man, then there's a different kind of pill. You don't necessarily have to be happy all the time because we're judged on performance. But if, regardless, you're at a place where it makes you want to jump off a high place or a high building, if you know what I'm talking about, then you need to switch. You need to do something. Okay, only you can save yourself because no one's coming to save you. So let's see what the comment section is saying really quickly. HR is never your friend. Things I learned about jobs from 18 to 24. Co-workers aren't your friends. Managers don't care about you, even when they act like it. Oof. Corporate and DMs are typically because we don't swear on this channel. Nepotism is real. Hard work gets rewarded with more hard work. And high school never ends. Wow. Yeah, no, these are some comments where you can clearly see people are in agreement. It's aligned with the video. That's probably why it's taken off so much. But it goes to show you that you need to place yourself first, essentially. Because if you're not well, if your health deteriorates and suffers because of your job, then how will you be able to perform at your job anyways? You see? So you always have to put yourself at the forefront of everything and really tackle things with wisdom. That's the best thing I can say. Tackle it with wisdom. Let me know your comments in the comment section anyways. I want to know what you guys think in regards to this situation. Let me know which video to check out next, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.